Good evening, everyone, to the February 15, 2017 council meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Is there anybody from the public?
Can you do that?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to seal the non-public minutes.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Pike. Please call the roll.
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Councilor Pike.
Aye.
Councilor Thompson.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Councilor Nazaro.
Aye.
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? I think there's some people here to speak to the to the land purchase.
Yes.
That would be during the.
Yep.
Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 7:10. Can I have a motion, please, to accept the February 1, 2017 non-public non-public minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Councilor Pike.
Aye. I said aye.
Oh, sorry. Councilor Thompson.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Councilor Nazaro.
Aye.
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Can I have a motion to accept the February 1, 2017 regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
Please call the roll. Seconded by Burns. Councilor Burns.
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Did I do something
You
wrong?
got discussion.
You gotta
Oh,
look
oh,
up
oh.
and see if anybody's
Oh,
got
I'm
something
sorry.
going on in the discussion.
Wow. That's autopilot. I'm sorry. Bad, Gary.
Still trying to get online here, I apologize. In the, all right, public minutes, section 5, line 205.
What, is there a
Line
page on that?
205 is
Amy?
page
Line
7.
205 is
Seven?
page 7 of the packet.
Yeah.
Just taking me a second to log on here, sorry. Line 205, I had thought the Councilor Nazaro had recommended a change there that if there were any problems, that it wouldn't go to the school board chair and the council chair, that it would go directly to the boards. And I noticed that it still says in there the chairs, and I'm wondering what the,
That should be discussed during the...
Yeah, it should be, but just for clarification,
well, but it's in the public minutes.
right, it was never changed at the council level. It was discussed, but the discussion from the council was to have it reflect the same way the finance director position
Right.
was. In the finance director position, has the council, the chairs meet with the superintendent and town administrator to discuss. They can't make a final decision, but if there's still no outcome from there, it goes to the council for basically like arbitration.
Okay.
I said it, that actually
Yeah.
reflects what I said, but the council never changed, actually, inside of the
So that
document,
would-
which we would discuss it.
We'll
when we
discuss
got
it tonight. If we're going to change it, we can change it tonight.
But you're not just changing it tonight.
Oh, that's, well, yeah, when we address it. Sorry.
Okay, that was just a comment, sorry.
Anything else?
Councilor Burns.
Aye.
Councilor Bowden.
Aye.
Councilor Pike.
Aye.
Councilor Thompson.
Aye.
Councilor Weinstein.
Aye.
Councilor Nazaro.
Aye.
Councilor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Administrator, your report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my unwritten report, I think we all realize that winter has now hit us. We have received almost 3 feet of snow in the last week, and anticipating, from last I saw on weather, and I guess the numbers are changing, but anywhere from 5 inches to a foot tonight. I just want to commend the Public Works Department. I've talked to some employees today who weren't sleeping. They've been out straight, but I still want to say that they have, driving around the seacoast, the best roads in the area. Sidewalks get done immediately. I could tell you that the director feels, like, after a big storm on Main Street, they push it to one side and they can't get to it right away. It's just not possible because they have to get every road clear. And they get to it as soon as possible. I just want to explain that to the public, and they try to punch out where the crosswalks are so people get to the businesses. They try to get there as soon as possible. I can tell you that other communities, it takes days before they can get back. So I just want to publicly say they're doing a great job with this. and thank them. We haven't seen this for 2 years, and I don't think we've seen this much snow in 2 weeks in a long time either. So I just want to say that publicly. The other thing is that the council, I just want to give up an update publicly on the stormwater permit. Myself and the water and sewer superintendent attended a meeting this afternoon put on by the EPA, which was enthralling, there's sarcasm there, about the EPA MS4 stormwater permit. If the council wasn't aware, the EPA issued this permit the day before the presidential inauguration. Yes, there was a reason why it was issued the day before the presidential inauguration. It wasn't supposed to come out till late 2017. The note, what we were told was they're going to go through Massachusetts first, see how it works out, tweak it, then bring it to New Hampshire to issue the permit. With a change in administration, they decided to issue the permit before the new administration came in, without seeing how it worked in Massachusetts. So we're going to have to follow some of the regulations that are going on down there. This is going to be a significant impact on the town. It's going to start in 2018. We have been putting money aside for this, so we're ahead of the curve there. Just to let people know what this means is that we're going to be having to, first thing, a big part of it is education. We're going to be educating the public on proper maintenance of their lawns and stormwater runoff, what fertilizers they should be using, encourage the building of rain gardens, making sure people clean up after their animals on their properties, so it doesn't run off and get into our water systems. On the town side, we're going to have to be reviewing all of our storm drains. We're going to be testing the waters that are coming through there. We're going to have to look at zoning regulations for impervious surfaces for certain size driveways and parking lots. As I said, additional rain gardens as part of projects like that. So I just want to let you know this is going to be on the forefront now. It was something we thought we were going to be able to put off a little bit longer, but now it's going to be more to the forefront that we're going to have to be addressing. So I just want to let the council be aware of that.
Real quick, Phil. Yeah. Steve, just for the record, my understanding was we had been putting some money away for engineering, and I don't hold me to, was it like 20 or 30,000 that we thought the engineering might be, or is it more than that?
Oh, yeah, we've been putting away because we've been thinking.
How much have we put away so far? Do you know?
I believe we're up to 75 to 100.
113,000.
113,000.
And so that's just to deal with the engineering aspect. Has anybody got an estimate as to how much this may end up costing the town for mitigation?
No, and that's the question. Nobody hasn't. Not many.
Could it be in the millions?
From what I've been seeing for other communities, no. Probably more. From my understanding, seeing some comments in the press this weekend, Portsmouth was estimating close to $1 million. I think Dover was saying $500,000. So I don't think we're that high. It's just we don't know what we have where our infrastructure situation is for a lot of those items. Okay. So that's what we've got to figure out first.
Okay. Councilor Mazzaro.
So if the MS4 work is getting pushed up, obviously there's only so many hours a day and so many work hours in a week. What are we slowing down work on? Like what's coming off of? It's Diane's plate, right? Diane and Rick.
It's mainly Rick. It's a trio of people, including myself,
Yeah.
plus myself. It would be Sean, the planner, and the DPW director.
Sean, the planner, DPW director, you.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think what we'd have to see is where we are with the ordinances from the planner side. Get an engineer in here to do some of the initial studies for the MS4 implementation as a stormwater management plan. And from what I was hearing today, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we should wait a little bit to see what templates some entities may be issuing that we may not have to reinvent the wheel. Yep. So it's going to be pushed up, but we also want to don't jump into the fire to see. We want to be the same as everybody else, and that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a lot more regional cooperation with this because it's not just a Newmarket issue. This is everything from Manchester East issue.
So, like, I'm all about the regional cooperation. still, the question is like, what are we not going to be doing, or what are we stopping work on so that we can start work on this?
We haven't stopped anything yet. We don't know
We have
yet.
to, though, right? You can't.
Probably we'll just be trying to figure, probably realigning our time. We may not be adding additional projects that we may have because
We
of
may
this.
have to hire somebody to come in and help implement some of this, depending upon
An
what the
engineering firm.
requirements are.
Right.
Okay. So, this comes from taxation, correct? All this work?
Yes.
It's nothing, even though Sean's involved, nothing to do
Yeah,
with
no,
wastewater?
no.
So it's not going to affect rates, it's just going to
It's
affect
taxation.
So it's an unfunded mandate.
Yeah, from the feds.
Is
And
there any, like, not that I like the idea of it, but federal assistance or state
Nope.
assistance?
no, because everybody's got to do it.
Unfunded mandate.
So, so my final question then. So what is, like, did the MS, when it came down, did it have, like, is it January 1st, 2018? We have to be in alignment with it?
No,
or-
it's phased in. July 1st, 2018 is we need to have in place an educational plan. That's already being worked on a state level and a more regional level. After that is when you have to have the bigger plans, like the how do we address our stormwaters, catch basins maintenance plan. That they can't be more than 50. If they're more than 50% filled, they're not considered a catch basin anymore. But you don't want it that way because I jokingly said to let them fill them.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to deal with it. But
The state's going to have to provide us with some guidance.
right, and that's what we're looking for first. I could tell you from the room that we were in today, 90% were engineers from private engineering firms. So they,
I mean, I would argue that, like you sort of said, right, that so much of this front end, the work is going to be in the devising of the tools and templates that, like, we should stay in alignment with what the requirements are, but anything we can do to, like, take advantage of other communities building templates. Like, if Mass had gone first, we would have had all these templates we could have used.
Yeah.
And the Conservation Commission, I'm sure, is willing to help.
yeah.
Councilor Weinstein.
I just have a question about the cost. So you mentioned a couple of communities, $1 million, $500,000. Is that a one-time cost, or is that an annual cost? Like, and what does it
It won't be
entail?
annual.
No, the
So I'm just
initial
curious.
setup is about they were saying about $500,000, but you're going to have to do different practices annually. So there will be additional costs annually for this. Good thing is we're pretty ahead of the curve. I mean, we own our own street sweeper. We do sweeping consistently. That's one of the big costs for communities. That don't, I mean, which is odd because we have it already. Catch basins are maintained here very well. That would be another cost that is out there. We've got to look at our own facilities, making sure that when we wash vehicles that they're the water's being treated correctly and that there's nothing being run off there. What are we running off into just the streets, into some of the brooks and the other rivers? Those are the kind of things that we're going to need to look at. I mean, I saw quotes in the paper from some officials that said that every time it rains, we're going to have to send somebody out to test the water. I think that's a little high, but I think that's the kind of stuff that we're going to have to pay more attention to. Is annually what are we putting into the storms water system that's going out into the river, into the bay?
This is about the bay and the erosion of all that. So
And I just want to clarify something too, that this is separate from the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, because that was that's a different entity, but they work together.
Councilor Bowden.
So this is all every town from Manchester East, correct?
Pretty much,
Is that it?
yeah.
So seeing that Newmarket has the best person to design something like this, and Mr. Grieg, wouldn't we would it be beneficial for us to reach out to other towns on the coast to see about working together?
Oh, and we already
on these
are.
plans?
We already are working together on this. This has been going on for here before I even started in Newmarket. That there's
For this particular project?
yes. There's a group of,
So,
I want to say it's Portsmouth, Dover, Durham, Rochester, Somersworth. It's a storm, and that's a group that's been, again, it's just moved up forward because this group thought we would have a little more time to address it. So there has been meetings, and it's mainly the smaller communities that haven't been meeting so much with us. Exeter, I forgot Exeter, I'm sorry.
all right. The second question is, we do have a list of projects and their priorities, correct? Projects going on for the town, for the short and long-term planning,
Capital improvement plan.
as far as what's going on now, what's going on, as far as,
We have the capital improvement plan for the long-term capital projects, yes.
okay, so we can look at that list of what we're doing now, see what we can bump out.
He's asking about my question, I think.
Correct.
Oh, okay, yes. Yeah, we can look at other projects and say, look, but I think this is more of a day-to-day operational change. This isn't going to be like, we're going to have to replace the entire stormwater system because it's failing. We're not at that, we're not there for a large capital thing. This is more of an operational, procedural, making sure it's not a one-time capital program like rebuilding a wastewater treatment plant. This is a, how do we do best practices in management versus a one-time thing. It's just, it's not something you're going to postpone doing like roads one year because we have to do this. It's,
But if we do have to come up, just to use a number, I'm just going to use $500,000 just because it's a number.
yeah.
I mean, if the engineering's 100, I mean, you know. So is the question, are there things in the CIP that might get delayed so the budget doesn't, not bust, but get inflated? I mean, I guess I'm assuming that's part of the question at hand.
Yeah, if there's a large project, I think there's, one, you can't, the way we fund our capital improvement projects is that we contribute money to capital reserve funds. So you can't take the money from one capital reserve fund and
No, I
put it
wasn't
into
saying
this.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, you might just hold off a little or slow down on something that might not be as much of a
You may not
priority.
contribute to the capital reserve funds in 1 year, but you may say, okay, I need to start moving, have another capital reserve fund to put into for the stormwater management, which, as we said, we have 100,000 now. We just continue to contribute to that till we try to address everything.
And I guess one last time, I'm sorry. As far as a list of projects for CIP and for the town, can you share that with us as far as how you prioritize?
It's
If an updated one, I guess?
Yeah, that was one of the
Outside.
goals for this year, that we're working on
Okay.
a new process.
Okay.
And you'll have it by
When
the
is
next
that?
meeting for us.
When
I
was
think
that
I think
due?
the plan was to
June.
have that by June, yeah.
That's right. Sorry. Thank you.
Was it June?
June to have a process, a new
Thank you.
process.
Something maybe
And then-
just look at March or April, no?
It's
I can't
actually,
remember exactly. That's where that MRI thing with the timelines for things would help.
yeah, a unified townwide CIP was the goal. And it was June to have a process in place. It was to have a new CIP in October, in
Okay.
the fall.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Pike?
Yeah, just on point of clarification, because you said, you know, that the MS4 is separate from the sewer plant, but the relationship, as I would understand it, is that for the sewer plant, since we weren't going to have to go to 3 parts per billion right away, we had to reduce our non-point pollution, and the MS4 process is a very big part of reducing the non-point pollution.
It is.
So in that sense, they're closely related.
Right. They're not. It's not as part of our administrative order consent to be the MS4. That's a separate federal guideline. However, you're right. We did say we'd look at non-point
Right. I
source
mean,
solutions.
many of the activities that will contribute will be the same for both projects.
Oh, Councilor Nazaro.
Just real quick, so the town planner in her report actually said that today, from 1 to 3, there was a meeting with Suzanne Warner from the EPA?
Yep, that's what I went to.
That was the one you were
Yeah.
at? Okay, all right.
She couldn't go. I went, and Sean went.
The one he was riveted at.
It was riveting.
That was the riveting
That was
one,
a
okay.
riveting one. Yeah.
I think the important thing to know is what's going to happen is that we're actually doing a lot of the stuff already. Like he said, we're doing the street sweeping, we're cleaning catch basins, we have the dog poop program, we have some ordinances that are already passed. What has to happen is all this stuff has to be formalized into a plan. So it's some of the stuff we're already doing. Some of the stuff that is going to happen is we have to map out our stormwater system. That's going out in GPS and all the catch basins and all the structures, all the outfalls. That's what has to get done. Then what's going to happen is once we do that to all the outfalls, we're going to have to sample the outfalls and see what's coming out of the outfalls. And then some sort of plan on how to address it if things are coming out of those pipes that are impacting the water. That's the biggest piece of what you're doing. But a lot of the stuff Rick is already doing. It's just someone has to come in and formalize, and put it all together. Because after each year, we're going to have to submit that as a progress report to the EPA. So what's going to happen now is, I believe, in July, when this whole permit actually kicks off, we have a year, and there's like a list of stuff that we have to do. So that's how I saw it today, if that helps.
Sean, just a couple quick questions about that. Is salt a big contributor?
Salt was one of the things that they did discuss today.
And fertilizer, I'm assuming, is a contributor, correct?
Yes, but salt was a big one that they brought up today. And
so I'm just asking, not to be kind of a wise guy, but, we're worried about, dog waste and things of that nature. I suppose they're going to have coyote chasing as well. I'm sure that's coming.
Yeah.
And birds. But if the main contributors are salt and fertilizer, which I'm assuming they're probably, they have an impact on the eelgrass, I'm guessing, in the bay in general.
Well, I think the bottom line is it depends on the body of the water that you're going to.
Well, Great Bay isn't that about nitrogen?
It is, and it's about bacteria. There are actually high bacteria counts in some of the rivers. So that would be some of the things that we would have to address. It may not be salt. It's particular to what your water body is. And what
So
you're
is someone going to give us that feedback?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's in there.
And one last thing about the salt. Are there salts out there that, I know they're a lot more expensive, but are there salts out there that are less
Salty?
No, like I use a
Yes.
salt for the driveway that doesn't kill all the plants and stuff.
So-
I'm sure we're not spending crazy money on it.
So how they want us to start out is
Yeah.
start keeping track of how much salt we put on the roads. So we can try and figure out if we're putting too much salt on, or if we're, trying to get some sort of gauge of how much salt is going on the road, how much can we figure that is actually going to the river. Then look at how are ways that we can reduce our salt that we're putting on the roads. What are some other things that we can do that isn't going to impact the environment nearly
Like a
as
mixture
much?
of dirt in it and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
but that's a slow, steady. They just want us to track it at first, and then figure out what we can do later. If there's something we can do, there may be nothing we can do.
Thank you. Anybody else? Excuse me?
So we can just heat the roads.
Yeah, we can get radiant heat for all the roads. That would be great.
Solar power.
Not lately.
Anything else?
Just quick on the operating budget. We're right on target for right now. Again, that was before the snowstorms of this week. We were already tight with salt prior to the storms just because of the weather we've been having. And the finance director is looking at that now and should report back to me next week on where we are with the snow budget. Revenue's still healthy. Motor vehicle registrations are about 8% higher than we were last year at this time. And building permits are also higher than the previous year. That's more of because we've had some subdivisions than anything else. Other than that, that's all I have in my report tonight.
Councilor Weinstein?
I have several comments. So the first is about the police report, and I just have to say that it gets more thorough every month, and it's really it's great to see all the information that the chief puts in there. A few specific things there. I've asked a couple of times. I don't know if it's possible, but I would love to see some sort of comparison on the stats that he gives us from year to year. So this time last year, where were we at? Because when he in the report, it says 1,514 calls for service. That's a great number, I don't know if that's high. I don't know if it's low. I don't know what it means, really, because I have nothing to compare it to. So if we could see something. Now, I don't know if that data is available from last year, so maybe it's not. But you would think, yeah. I mean, it might not be readily available. So, but maybe as we move forward, if we could do something like that, I would appreciate it. I don't know if the other counselors would find that interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The other thing that I really want to comment on, specifically in the police report, although it was also in some of the other reports, was the progress on the MRI goals. I thought that was really, really helpful to have and to see specifically kind of what's been happening. And at some point, I know we talked about this, having all of those items in one document would be really great. And to that end, I think I don't recall getting this in a digital format, but we did get a summary of all of the items. If we could get that in a digital format, just so personally, so I can keep track of it, that would be really great too.
And just to go with that, this is the first round of this, and we're going to be working. We're meeting next Thursday to go through this again, and I know we said we'd get one document sometime late March. So
Yeah. No, and it's not a criticism at
Yeah.
all. Like, I think it's great information, and I really appreciated seeing it there. So that was that. There were a couple other items in the fire and rescue report. He mentioned a mailer, sending out a mailer for new recruits, or I guess that was the focus. I know that at one point in the MRI report, I read coupling mailers with, I think it may not have been in the MRI report, it might have been in my head, coupling mailers with water bills, or, in other mailings that the town sends out. So I don't know if that would necessarily be appropriate for this particular one, but, and obviously that doesn't go to every household, which, is another concern, but if we timed it right, it could cut down on postage.
yeah, and just to let everybody know, the one that you cannot put mailers in is the tax bills.
Right.
So just the one that does get to everybody, you can't
Right.
use. So we will look at this definitely.
I have some other things, I think. If somebody else wants to go, I can figure it out.
Counselor Thompson.
No, go ahead.
Take your time. No, Councilor Weinstein just brought up three of mine. The only other thing here is that, actually potentially two, but I can do one later, is that the IT report by Doug Poulin, as usual, reads like a Mike Rowe column, or the Bangor Police Department, and I want to say thank you for his good humor in doing his job. It's a treat scrolling through all the rest of the department's reports, as good as those are, because he's always got something funny to say. The other thing is that I don't have the right words, and the two I'm going to use sometimes are inadequate. But I wanted to say to Mr. Angel, after his several years here, thank you very much.
Those were good words.
He's got a couple more meetings.
Is there anything else? No. Counselor Pike, and then you can finish, Counselor Weinstein.
I just sort of piggybacking on the comment about the police report and starting tallying on the MRI. I particularly noted there was one where they had a very good discussion and explanation of a recommendation they weren't going to follow, because I think there are going to be quite a few recommendations that, for whatever reason, after close examination, they're not appropriate for the town, and I thought that kind of a discussion was just about right, spot on.
You're talking about the fees, the police? Mm-hmm. That was going to be one of my questions. Counselor Weinstein.
There were two other items. One, it mentioned a sign regulation because of a recent Supreme Court decision that was in
What page?
Planning?
yes. No, it wasn't in where was it? Building.
Signs are
It was in
building
building
inspector.
inspector. Worked with it, so it's page 28 of the packet. Worked with town planner and planning board committee on sign regulation updates to comply with recent Supreme Court decision.
Yeah, he came before the subcommittee, the planning board subcommittee, so those ordinances are, was it first reading?
First reading tonight.
Oh,
So it's just,
that's that, okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope, thank you.
Just a couple things, Steve. Could you, one of the things MRI suggested, and I think it would really be helpful, then you wouldn't have to take as many notes. If you had the goals that they had annotated and then you gave us a status report, if it was in our packet every week, or every 2 weeks, then we could just see what the status was. You know what I mean? And then if there's any, because it would be right in front of us, so that might be
Yeah.
helpful. Instead of trying to remember, because sometimes it's hard to remember. Is that hard to put together?
No, this is sort of what I've asked the department heads to start doing, is exactly what you're seeing in the police. I think you're seeing police first because he has the longest list of them because of the way it was. In some of the other departments, they're trying to work together, like planning and building inspection.
Okay. But if it was a grid where we could see everything, do you know what I mean?
Yep,
Then we could see. Okay.
Yeah,
We could just
like
see.
an Excel spreadsheet, and we'll put them all in, and
It'd be really helpful, I think, to the council. I did want to ask about what Councilor Pike had sort of brought up in a circuitous way. On page 14, it says, this is the chief now, I believe, I have thought long and hard about directing all payments of fees and fines now collected at the police department to the tax collector's office. It's on page 14. It's not my intention to change standing practice. What was the rationale, because I just can't remember off the top of my head, for MRI suggesting that, and why the chief does not want to do it?
one of the rationales why MRI suggested it was a lot of municipalities have one collection point. So if you have a single collection point, you don't have to worry about money being everywhere in the community. So it goes to one person or one department, they audit it, it goes to, then they deposit it, and the slips go to finance. The reasoning why police department doesn't want to do it is, one, if you get a police report at the police department, you don't want to have to drive to town hall to have to pay for it. Or you don't want to have print out a police report at the police department, send it to town hall, they have to come here to pick it up and pay for it. I don't disagree with that. I think that those are the kind of items that you should be able to get at the department they're in.
Now, do they keep some of that to pay for some of their vehicles and things, or?
Departments aren't allowed to keep money.
Okay.
That's all general fund that comes back to us.
Wasn't there a police
The detail
account?
fund.
Okay, so that's the only one that they
That's correct.
use to pay for their, okay, so when they keep it, how does it ultimately get to the town?
We still bill and collect the detail rates, the detail funds. That when we
No, I mean this part, where they're not bringing it.
a department head or a representative from the department comes to the town hall and deposits it with us, and we make the deposit.
Okay.
It's not a lot of money either.
No, I just didn't, I was trying to understand the rationale. Okay. And there was one other quickie. Payroll on page 38. It said something about MRI discusses outsourcing payroll in the event consolidating finance operations fails. However, I don't believe this would be a backup plan, but part of an ongoing consolidation. Outsourcing the school district is more preferable, et cetera. Is there any reason we don't outsource payroll? Because isn't outsourcing ultimately less expensive? It certainly is for my company.
In our case, we don't have enough employees to really make it viable. We would still have to have the same number of employees to enter the data, and then the data we get back, we have to go and audit them. In my experience, and I've had to deal with 2 other towns this year with third-party payroll systems, they're late, they're incorrect, and they cost more money. It would be beneficial if we had like 1,000 employees.
Geez, I only have about 40, and I save a lot of money.
Agreed, but also our staff is really good, and they understand all the payroll ins and outs. So reporting, honestly, we get our W-2s done January 2nd. They get issued on the 20th because we just let them sit for 20 days to make sure nothing comes out of the woodwork.
And I've been in a municipality where we went from third party to in-house, and the number of employee complaints dropped significantly, because if it was an issue, it could be fixed right away. We didn't have to pay a penalty or a fine if it was an error not on the payroll company side, but our side. That's something. The cost went down there. It does seem like it would seem like you're outsourcing or you're saving, but you're still having somebody sit there and enter the same numbers, but we're just entering into our own system and printing out the checks versus sending it off to a third party to do it for us.
Councilor Burns?
I'm moving on to another piece
Oh,
in here, so.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Okay, so on page 40 regarding the Recreation Department, just curious, and I apologize, I just don't recall the timeline, but when are you looking to hire a replacement for Jim?
I should have that done within beginning of March.
Okay, all right, because part of it that just concerned me a little bit in here, I think it was the second paragraph under personnel report, is that they did have to cancel a couple programs due to being short-staffed that were revenue generating, so.
Yeah, and I talked to her, and they said, look, we're going to have to try to figure out the staffing
You mean Amy?
situation. Yeah. So, yeah, we should have something by then.
Okay. Thank you.
Just 2 seconds, and I don't need Matt to come up, but how many people do we have doing payroll now? One person, okay. Councilor Bowden?
Councilor Burns actually stole my thunder, but
Sorry.
I am glad for the rec department that the daddy-daughter dance is still on for March 23rd.
Awesome.
Priorities.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn now? Seeing none, I also would like to thank DPW. I think they did a really good job on the roads. And the next day, and it was a pretty egregious storm, New Road was very drivable, as was the rest of the town, and I heard nothing but positive things, so I do want to say that as well. And seeing no other reports, I will go to, or questions, I will go to committee reports, I think, isn't that? Did I miss something?
No, I have a committee report.
Go ahead, Councilor Pike.
Planning board met last night, so the main things that happened, they're referred to in the planning committee of the administrative report, but the application for the Tucker well that came before the planning board last night was approved, and the other thing that they had a design review for was the Grape Street project that's been going on, and so that was actually that was quite positive in the terms of the appearance there. So the atmosphere was good, and other than that, we just talked some about preparations for the upcoming joint town council planning board meeting on March 1st.
Are we going to get some something for that, Steve, so we can prepare?
Yeah, we were that's what I think the planner was waiting for, is to get some conversation with the planning board. She and I are going to talk and set up an agenda.
Okay. It'd be great if we could have a little prep. Any other committee report?
Just real quick on that, too. We're going to be meeting in an auditorium for that one, just because of the logistics.
Okay.
Conservation Commission was not held because of snow. It was postponed until next month.
Okay. Just, you would have thought they would have roughed that and hiked over to.
Jeff was going to make a snowshoe in, but
There you go. I mean, if not them, who? Any other committee reports? Seeing none, under old business, page 63, do I have a motion to move forward with Resolution 2016-17-22 relating to the Town Hall bollards? I think I pronounced that right.
So moved.
Second.
Overview.
Yeah. Last spring, I came into Town Hall one day and noticed that there is nothing to stop a vehicle from driving into the building in front of Town Hall. And if you look in the front, your headlight, the front of the vehicle is lined up exactly with the windows. I brought it up to the Public Works Director, Building Inspector, Finance Director, and Building Ground Supervisor, who also looked at it and said that's probably a good idea. I mean, to say, once you look at something, something happens. The following week, a truck backed into the building and did some damage to a window. Luckily, it wasn't fast, and insurance paid for it. The concern is if a vehicle, even if it's just a simple, somebody hits the gas instead of the brake in front of the building, without something stopping it, they're going to go through the window, and this building would probably be closed for a while because it would be doing some significant damage to that area. These are just bollards that will be 4 feet in the ground, iron. Will stop them, at least give them another thing to hit before going into the building and slow them down. It's not going to stop a Mack truck from going in, but it should prevent a car or a SUV from hitting the building. As he said, there's nothing, as of right now, there's nothing in front of the building to stop a car from going in those windows.
Councilor Weinstein.
So I absolutely think that we probably could use these. I'll make some bets as to, because that's generally where I park. I'm sure at some point I will hit the bollard now, whereas I never did hit the window. My one comment about this resolution is that, and I know it's something that we're working on, but I would really love to see, because we're taking this out of the capital building improvement fund, and yeah, it's never been in the, and I know it's not, it probably wouldn't have been a capital project, it's $5,000, but it's never been a part of that process, but yet we're taking it out of that fund. And I imagine that there are other things that have been in the works for a long time that we've been contributing money for. And so I question that. Where it's one of our goals, and I know we're going to have that plan in a few months, it probably won't stop me from voting for it, but I'm on the fence for that issue. I mean, just for that issue. So it's something that I think I think we need for sure. And I just wanted to make that statement again. I know we've talked about it ad nauseum at this point, but.
Councilor Thompson.
I'm going to agree with Councilor Weinstein, but I am actually not on the fence. I think that it is a good idea, a great idea. But I don't feel that based on what accidents have not happened, that this is on fire, and I believe that it would have been nicer to go through the planning, the CIP process. And this is exactly the kinds of things that, although it's $5,000, it's not 500. It is under the threshold, but I would say that there's a point there.
It wouldn't go to in the CIP planning process because their threshold is anything over 10,000. The reason why it was coming from here is because the fund was set up for building maintenance, and it just gives us an area just to withdraw money if something were to come up. The fund was never set up just purely for capital projects. It was for any projects that may come up. So,
Councilor Nazaro.
So the request is for us to withdraw $4,900 plus, almost $5,000 from the Building Maintenance Capital Improvement Fund. What project are we taking $4,900 away from within the Building Improvements Capital Fund that money was being saved towards?
Is there anything that's not going to be done because of that?
Or slow down.
I mean, I guess here's probably, it's a jerky way of asking the question. Let me ask the question the right way. Like, do we have a plan for how that $211,159 within that capital reserve fund is going to be used?
We have a plan of what we want to purchase with those funds. The problem is the amount of funds that are in there are not tied directly to the plan.
Right.
The thing is we don't fund the plan fully.
So I know, right? So there's the capital improvement plan and the capital reserve fund. Very different, not very
Exactly.
related, but different things.
Yes.
So my question is that if we are taking money out of, so there should be plans behind these funds, right? So
Right.
there are probably a series of building improvement plans that are requesting over time to withdraw from the capital reserve fund. My question is, we are now taking $5,000 from something. So even though it's not like officially in the accounting system as anything more detailed than building improvement capital reserve fund, somewhere there is a plan.
Yeah, but
Or not.
Can I think probably the best thing to do would be to defer to hopefully a new building facilities person who would be able to better come up with a plan. I can come up with things that would be deferred, like we need to really look at our HVAC systems. We need to look at our roofs. Let's see, windows and doors. Insulation.
Windows.
Okay.
I
But
can write you a book.
I'm just the numbers guy. I think that the answer for your question should be deferred to someone who has much more experience in facilities management.
Yeah. So, kind of going with what Councilor exactly what Councilor Weinstein and Councilor Thompson said. Like I brought this up when we put in carpet here. I brought this up when we painted here. I just feel like, as like maybe my last stand before I depart you all, that I'm just I just can't in good conscience vote for this, given that I've asked for like 18 months to see a plan for this.
There is a capital improvement plan
For building improvement?
Then
I would hold this over. Personally, then, I would say I would personally move to hold this over for third reading so I could see that.
But I want to just
It's not,
what
this is not in that.
That's not
this
in it,
is
but
not
I
in
want-
there.
But I want to see what it is.
Hold on. Part of the reason why this fund was set up too is exactly for this situation. If there was something that came up within the year that nobody thought of, that we could go to this fund and withdraw, because there may be something.
That is like a de facto contingency plan.
It's a de facto savings
Aren't we
account.
not allowed to have? Don't the RSA's not allow us to have a capital reserve fund that is
No.
specifically for contingency?
you can have contingencies, and actually one of them tonight I'm going to withdraw from.
Right. That's
Okay,
why you have
and
those.
and that's why I asked for a contingency for snow removal.
So even if a percentage, okay, I'll be done after I say this. Even if a percentage of this is contingency, I've never seen a plan that says what percentage of this is contingency and what the rest is for. If it exists, I would love to see it.
And I think that the issue is, prior to the recent change in the CIP process, money was being put in here purely for contingency. There was no coordination between the exact number of projects in the plans. We're getting now to saying, okay, this is what the projects are for the coming year. Let's put aside this money for that, for the buildings.
Exactly.
So some of it is still from the old contingency days, and we're switching it over to the actual planning.
You show me a plan, I'll vote for these bollards.
Yeah.
Okay, the CIP plan is actually on the town's website. All right.
Should have been in the back.
Any questions?
While he's looking that up, how many incidences have we had in the last 3 years, roughly, Steve?
I know of one.
Because I have to tell you, and as soon as I say this, a truck will end up in the basement. But
That's exactly what.
I thought about a fence. I thought about. I thought about different ways to do it without, having the place look lousy. But, if we've had one incident and basically people know to stop, it just seems, I know it's only 5,000, but it's 5,000. And I'm not convinced, like I said, somebody will drive right in the basement tomorrow. but I'm not convinced.
It's all on you.
Yeah, and that's why, you know,
There's
it would-
no building improvements.
take your computer and go back to your seat. Enough of this.
Nice try.
Sorry. I just, I haven't seen enough incidences to justify it, and I don't think it's, if we had $5,000 laying around and we were, you know, loaded to the gills, I'd say fine. But we had one incident, we have insurance for that, you know. Like you said, if somebody's driving like a maniac, they're probably going to end up in the basement anyway. So, you know, God forbid something like that happen, it's not going to prevent them going into this bollard isn't going to stop a car moving, you know, significantly past the normal speed limit. So
Can
If-
Mr. Angel come up again?
No, he's
that's why I just can't, I can't justify it based on the number of incidences. It's not that I don't think, it wouldn't be nice to have, but that's just my take, so, anyway. Come on up, Matt.
No, I'm.
good. He's just
You have
trying
not
to
been
He was
barred, you
just
can come back
signaling
up.
him with the-
We're paying him, aren't we? Come on up, say something.
All right. For Phil's thing, there's a roof plan here for, on page 7.
You gotta have a little fun.
I know.
Well, if you're gonna get up there, say something, come on.
250,
There's the bunker room and locker rooms on page 8.
250,
Boiler replacement, windows, bathroom renovation, which has been completed.
6.
Page 9.
Well, then they can contribute.
So all I'm saying is that over the next, what this suggests is that over the next 6 years, you're spending near $1 million out of that fund, which you're not, because you're not actually doing this. This
Exactly.
is just the department's plan.
Yes,
Right? And I know
exactly.
it's one of our goals. And I know
Eagle
that it's one
view.
of our goals.
That's right.
But again, like, you get my point. I
Yeah.
think I've made it enough times.
Yeah.
Thank you, though.
By the way, your suggestion has been heard.
I want to give him a plaque for CIP. When Phil retires, he's going to get a CIP plaque.
I asked to see
Finals.
graphs for like 2 years on the town administrator report. I finally did.
Give you a report. Yeah, great.
Does anyone else have any comments about this? Do you want to call the roll?
Sure.
If you guys want to weigh in, or because right now I think it's up in the air. I'm sorry. Bernbode.
For what is on the town website,
I don't have in front of me, I need to ask.
for what is on the town website,
Yeah.
it's dated 10/16/2015.
I have the 2016 final.
It's on there.
It's on there.
Right, that's what I clicked on, and when I pull it up, it says
It does.
2015.
The dates are wrong.
She's on Newmarket, Ontario, I think.
Right.
Cover page different?
She's right. So the link goes to the 2015 requests, and it literally is just the department requests is all that's in there.
Go back to your chair.
Matt, thank you. Getting your exercise.
What do you think, Dale?
Well, late in the game, but I'm just curious for.
Do you want these bollards bad?
Now, has anybody, you know, would granite curbing have been an alternative to put just something there that stops people's tires there?
Gee, we got a bunch.
How about, do we have any
Anybody
recyclable
wanna
tires
speak to that?
from DPW?
Maybe it's more, I mean, I'm not saying,
I
Got
think if
some
we
old
put-
refrigerators
If
if
we put
you
that in
want
front,
one.
I'd get in trouble. So we're trying to make it the most aesthetically pleasing.
yeah,
Granite curbing,
you know, just something that, you know, that
Stops.
tire stop.
I believe it's been considered.
Probably more money, Dale, honestly.
That's what my question was.
Don't we have a pile of it somewhere? that we
Yeah,
can
I know that there was discussion about pulling it out. I know it's been considered, and it was ruled out. I don't remember the reason why.
Okay.
I think it was the difficulty for clearing the snow around it.
Okay. Well,
I'm not entirely certain.
like bollards would be a lot.
Yeah.
pull? No, I know, that's a,
All right, well, we've discussed the bollards, it's $5,000. Call the roll, let's see what happens.
Council Burns.
No.
Council Bowden.
Nay.
Council Pike.
Well, just, I might as well go along. Nay.
Council Thompson.
nay.
Council Weinstein.
Nay.
Council Nazaro.
Nay.
Council Levy.
Wow. You stopped
Come
when
on.
5,000. 9.
Motion failed.
Stop something. Oh, my God.
I don't mean, like I said, tomorrow somebody's going to end up in the basement. All right, geez.
But we'll all share in the blame.
Yes, I'm going to blame all of you. Resolution 2000, do I have a motion to accept Resolution 2016-17-23 to withdraw from the compensated absences expendable trust fund?
So moved.
Second.
Do you want to explain this briefly, or have
Sure.
Matt or somebody?
I can do this briefly.
Matt
and
is
ask questions.
Matt is dying to jump up there.
What this is we set up a fund many years ago because we know that we have liabilities out there for when somebody were to leave their employment from the community. We had 2 individuals retire this year with significant number of years who had earned time coming to them from the retirement. We set this fund up as a contingency that we're allowed to dip into when need be. And this is what's going on, is that with these 2 individuals retire, instead of hitting the operating budget, we can withdraw from here to pay them their earned time.
That was going to be my question. So if you didn't, usually I don't go, but
No, that's fine.
if we didn't okay this, you'd take it out of this year's budget,
We would have to.
theoretically?
That theoretically, we'd have to hit the budget.
That would be good if you could afford it.
Right. And right now, with the snow, we don't know what we can afford, and if there's another retirement, we do have to hit the budget.
Okay, I'll go after Councilor Nazaro and then Weinstein.
So I actually remember when we set this up, and I believe Matt was the one who said we should do it, or you, one of you two, but it was during like your guys' like tenure. So I think it's good that this is not hitting our budget because it would be like a major whammy. Are we from what we've done is leveled out what the impact is to the taxpayers as opposed to 1 year spikes. So it like sort of helps like all capital reserve funds do, right? And improvement plans like level the tax rate. My question is, looking forward, do we have like a plan for this around where we might see another potential like major withdrawal because people are saving a bazillion sick days?
Yeah, we're anticipating one more retirement, and hopefully that retirement will occur next year.
Next year?
Yeah.
Are we like emptying this thing?
We're empty. Yeah, but
Remember, our
we're
year ends on June 30th.
Next year, not this year.
Yeah,
next
so-
year.
What are you
Beginning
saying?
July
It's gonna
1.
be depleted by the time.
It's going to be
this-
depleted though. Like, what have we put in this year in the budget?
We put in,
10,000.
right, and they'll cover it.
Oh, that'll come.
Well, it'll cover a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
The department's going to have to cover the difference.
It'll come out of their budget,
Yeah,
is what he's saying.
All right, thank you.
And then
Com-
beyond that, there are 7 other people who are eligible to retire.
Eligible.
Eligible.
I'm sorry, can I say?
No, yeah, sure.
Do we track what they are carrying for like sick and overtime and all the stuff that they could get paid out?
I calculate it town-wide, regardless of whether they're eligible or not.
Is that a system that when you turn into a pumpkin and another person comes in, they'll be able to inherit and?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
It's not just like something like a MAT system.
And no, and she saw it yesterday.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Weinstein.
That was my question. I'm good.
Councilor Thompson.
Accrued sick time, is there a policy, like, a lot of companies, and I'm just gonna, because we're public, I know it's not a
Okay.
specific thing, but a lot of companies, let's say, or use it or lose it. You get so much per year, you can carry over 5 days or 10 days or whatever, and after that, you're done. What, that doesn't happen?
Vacation is use it or lose it. However, if they,
Well, wait a minute, it says here earned sick and vacation, man.
correct, but if you work the whole year, you're going to be able to take what you accumulated during that year. But once the year rolls over, they lose it. They can only carry over
So are you saying
2
this?
weeks.
Just to clarify, you saying this vacation that's totaling $42,830,
It's
vacation from this year,
that's vacation plus 1/2 of their sick time.
but only for this year for the vacation?
But only vacation, yeah. So if you have an employee who doesn't retire, they're only going to take whatever they accumulated for vacation in that year. But if you have a person who retires from service, like the 2 individuals that we had this year, they get to take 1/2 of their sick time.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. I work 10 years.
Yep.
I never take a vacation. I only get, and then I retire. I only get 1 year vacation for the year I had just worked and retired.
Yes,
The other 9 years, I lost it.
correct,
Okay. Whereas earned sick time is not use it or lose it.
correct. It's
Okay.
capped at 720 hours.
Okay. How many sick days a year do they get? Just because I don't know.
I just have the hours in my head.
Is it two? Okay.
It depends upon the years of service.
Oh, so it goes up predicated. So you said 700 and...
One day a month,
720.
maximum of 90 days.
Okay. So just to
And we
ask...
get to $31,519.
Well, if you don't, if you work for a long, if you work for 10 or 15 years and you don't use your...
Any sick time.
Or a little bit. I guess my question is, and I'm just asking, Matt, from a policy standpoint, or Steve, and I'm certainly, not against people getting their time, et cetera, but we went to a use it or lose it at the store just because it was becoming very onerous, to Amy's point, and a lot of private sector does that.
And people need to also take their vacation. That's the whole point of it, so you don't.
And sick time and whatnot, but I guess my question is could the town go to use it or lose it? There's nothing, I'm guessing, legally prohibiting us from that, is there?
I defer to Matt, but I believe that since we've already offered it to the number of employees.
Well, I'm
that-
not saying, no, I would make that retroactive. I
Okay.
would never do that. I'm
Yeah.
saying, going forward, for new employees, could the council at least have a conversation, or maybe ask our lawyer, is it something we could consider? Because it's not in the spirit of being draconian, but, you get a bill for $42,000. I mean, it's kind of strange. We'll do the last year if they don't, but for the 5 years before that they didn't use it, they wouldn't get it. Where'd that come from? What's the rationale for that?
One thing I would also suggest looking at is if you do use it or lose it, sick times tend to be used not as sick time, but also as an addition to vacation time.
Oh.
And one thing we could do is say, you know what? It's not use it or lose it, but we'll cash you out at the end of the year. So you're not paying the individual at their highest rate at the end of their career. You're paying them at the rate at the time of their hire.
That's an idea.
One thing. I was in a community that didn't cap vacation. So I was trying to encourage employees, hey, why don't you start withdrawing now so we can save the budget later on? And we can look at a number of
I
things.
think we should at least, as a council, I mean, I have my opinion, other people may have theirs, but at least we can discuss it from a policy standpoint, because in all honesty, when you're looking at almost $100,000, that's a pretty good shtup.
Our overall liability is
Just over 311,000. That 311,000 as of last June.
But this alone is, 70, 80 grand. And I'm not saying they don't deserve it. All I'm saying is if you have the time and you used it, it's something I think from a policy standpoint, we should at least have the discussion. I don't know, if it's a union situation with the police, it may be different, but at least, anyway, that's just my take on it. So, Councilor Bowden.
I guess
and
a couple
Nazaro.
things. I guess looking at compensating absence, for those that may not be making, $100,000, $200,000, whatever they're making, I can see how they would be looking forward to this type of, retirement bonuses or whatever it is. It's earned time. It's earned vacation time. It's what they've worked towards and what they've really, I guess they're counting on. So I think it's kind of tough to take that away, but I can understand. I can certainly understand. The use it or lose it. Also, I know it's hard to keep good employees, so this may be a way to keep good employees. Personally, I would either use it or lose it. My company, that's just the way that I built it out. Also, there's a question on the funds can be depleted. I guess how often and how much and when does money get put into that fund?
We put it in annually as part of the operating budget. We're putting back in 10,000, which we've been putting in 3 or 4 years since we've gotten here.
Yeah. We skipped it last year just because we didn't have the room in the budget to put money aside.
All right, that was the next question. Thank you.
To Councilor Bowden's point, I think it would be a good discussion to at least have at the council level, you know.
Yeah, and he mentioned about something that employees anticipate. One of the reasons why as well is
They have a pension, don't they?
their pension is based on their highest paid 3 years. So what they do is, not what they do, is what some, they build this up. And the last year, this will be one of their highest 3 paid years, and it's considered part of their average. So it bumps up their pension after. And that's across the board, every community that happens in, so.
My goal would not be to be draconian. It would be to be, you know, I think thoughtful to the taxpayers and to the employees and whatnot. I don't think, you know, that's why we have a pension, I think. Councilor Nazaro?
So, again, any changes will be retroactive. Nothing would touch individuals who are currently in the system because they were sold a bill of goods, right? And I recognize that I'm going to vote for this, right, because we have to take this money out to pay this bill. But I'm probably not going to be on the council when you finally vote this, so I'm going to say it. I don't like the idea of paying out sick time at the end of every year because that incentivizes people not taking sick time when they're sick because they just want to get a big paycheck at the end of Christmas time, or holiday time. But is there an RSA that requires that we pay out sick time at the end of someone's retirement, or is that something we just happen to do in our personnel policy?
I'm not familiar with that in our
Okay.
state law. It's in our personnel policy.
I personally like that there's not, that like you're able to build up a ton of sick time, because if someone that's been worked here 20 years gets really sick and they need to take 90 days because they've got like the big C or something, that's great. Like we should like allow them, this loyal employee, to take that time that's necessary. I don't like that they're able to basically be incentivized to over 20 plus years, save up a bunch of sick time expecting a payday at the end of their career. Like that's like not what the purpose of sick time is.
Right.
It's like it's a misuse of sick time, and if there's any way we could look at our personnel policy to adjust that, like again, not retroactively for the people that were sold the current bill of goods, like I think that would be incredibly like a good thing for the community.
Just one quickie, Stephen. Then, so a few years ago, I had someone that got to Phil's point a big C, and I paid that person for 6 months because they were sick. And just to ask the question, if someone in the town had been a long-term employee, just so I get, like, because we've never really broached the subject since I've been on the council. But if you've had someone that's been a long-term employer or someone that you value, and they came down with something, and their accrued time wasn't going to cover their treatments and whatnot, do we have any kind of, can't they buy insurance, like we offer insurance to our employees, that they can purchase to cover them if, God forbid, something like that happens? Does the town offer that?
We have short-term and long-term disability.
Okay, so those are the things, honestly, for the big C or some kind of a horrible disease, I think that would be a more appropriate way to try to address. Does the state have some kind of negotiated plan that gives a little better deal than maybe the town could get on its own?
No, we're part of we're in the pools.
Okay.
It's the same with our healthcare.
But I mean, I would rather address it that way than this way, personally. If they, if they came down with something, that's something that they should be planning for. But that's just, that's a discussion the council can have when we have it.
And just to let everybody know, our plan is actually more conservative than most municipalities in the state. And I just want to make sure people don't think we're out of the ordinary.
I'm sure you're right.
But they're getting common like ours, or they're going to something called just plain old earned time. that you get rid of differentiating between the two. So we can look at that.
Maybe we can look at
Yeah.
that maybe in the next,
Yep.
sometime this year.
Part of your sticker shock, by the way, is the number one person did retire with the largest liability. There's no one else on the list that comes close to that liability.
Thank you, Matt. Do you want to call the roll, Steve? I think we've discussed it.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Pike.
Aye.
Counselor Thompson.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Counselor Nazaro.
Aye.
Counselor Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Unless you have it in the budget. Do I have a motion to accept? Sorry to have made you guys sit for all this. Do I have a motion to accept Resolution 2016-17-24, resolution relating to the purchase of the easements for access to the use of land owned by the Newmarket Community Church?
So moved.
Page 77.
Second.
You got that? Sorry. Bowden, Nazaro. Do you want to, does Richie want to come up, or someone from the conservation? Come on up, guys.
Richard Shelton, Packers Falls Road. I'm the chairman of the Shopmeyer Fundraising Committee. And just to let you know, we're still ongoing raising funds, but we've raised enough money, I believe, to build the park, pay for the easements and develop the park. And we got to have some extra money to put in the conservation fund, which I know we have some now, but we need more so they can maintain it over many years. And we're looking for your support. And I took this on the later part of last March, so we're pretty near a year into it now. And I've been pretty frugal. I've spent about $75 so far. Other than that, everything's been donated. And I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to explain this, the deal on this?
Yeah, Jeff, too.
Jeff.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Excuse me. I
Oh,
didn't-
no problem. Jeff Goldenoff, Chairman of the Conservation Commission, Ash Swamp Road in Newmarket here. Just want to say thank you to Richie and all the people that have volunteered time and efforts to help this process along so far. And just to keep you up to date, we are up to around $127,000 in funds raised to date. And as you can see by the resolution, we're looking at about $60,000 for the easement cost. So that does leave us quite a bit to develop the park and potentially put some money aside to maintain it in the future. And so, just as Richie asked, we'd just like your support in keeping the project moving ahead.
Okay. Go ahead.
What this was earlier this year, there was
One second. Beyond the money we've raised, we've also got a lot of in-kind donations. The parking lot's going to be built. Doucette Survey Company supplied all the survey and in-kind donations, so that all added into what we've raised, and that's a pretty considerable amount of money for their work. I think the parking lot, Skip Manzo said might run up to $15,000, and that's been donated by Wayne Roser and Charlie Gonnet.
Thank you. So, were you going to say something?
Yeah. What this is that the group of individuals, the Conservation Commission, and a group of people in the public wanted to honor Chris Shopmeyer by establishing a park along the river. What this purchase sales agreement does is purchase an easement from the Newmarket Community Church at basically behind where their thrift shop is on North Main Street for this group to establish the park in that area. The selling price is $60,000, which would be given sold to the church. The council has to approve this because we're accepting land, and we've had the attorney write up. Town attorney wrote up the purchase sales agreement. They negotiated the price, and that's where we are.
So the taxpayers are paying the 60 grand?
No, that's all through donations.
Okay.
No, the monies will, the Conservation Commission also offered to put up some funds if needed towards the purchase of the property, or the purchase of the easement, I should say. But no, of that 127,000 or so that's been raised so far, we'll tap right into that to help pay for this. It wouldn't have any burden. The only thing that we had been, maybe last time we were here, quite some time ago when we first brought this to the council, one of the concerns was like an ongoing cost to the town in the future, and that's kind of the idea of us kind of having money left over to help maintain the property in the future.
Maybe it's the wording, but just so I'm clear, because it says, the town council is amenable to purchasing the easements from Newmarket Church for $60,000. maybe am I not reading that right? Does that not imply the town is buying the easements for 60?
We are buying the easements for 60, but the funds are not coming through taxation.
Where are they coming from? From
The
the
donations, the contribution.
Yes.
Okay. So why does it say I'm just,
Yeah,
can't
we
help it.
can.
Why because
I
that
agree.
language does not
Yeah,
make
and I
sense to me.
can, I would recommend that we amend it to say, council members purchasing these easements from the Newmarket community for some $60,000. None of these funds shall come from taxation. Just to make sure it doesn't, that these are for.
We just do a friendly amendment to
Yeah,
this?
I think we could.
Yeah, I mean, it should be implied, I'm assuming that it would be from the donations that are being raised by. Did you
Correct.
set up a entity to some kind of
Matt's
entity?
got it all set up.
We received it as a
Matt, you have to come up here.
What I'm saying is, if it's a trust, should that trust be annotated here? You know what I mean?
You guys accepted the receipt of the gifts for this park, and we put that in a separate fund in the accounting system, separate from the general fund, for the sole purpose of
Okay.
getting this
Should
done.
that be written here, Steve, do you think? For clarification? Just asking. Because this does not imply what we're doing.
Yeah, how about we say, whereas the town council member will be purchasing these easements with funds from, what's the name of the exact fund, Matt? The Shopmeyer Park Memorial Fund?
That's good enough.
Okay. From the Newmarket Community Church for the sum of $60,000. So
we
that,
have- We have an amendment, since someone,
Do we need a motion to amend, or is that a friendly amendment?
So moved.
motion by,
Second.
okay.
So now we got to debate the amendment, or vote on the amendment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, but I just want to be clear, they have the money, obviously, it's already in the till, blah, 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 okay, good. Just want to be clear on these things. What?
Can it also, because there is the chance, depending on how development of the park moves forward, it sounds like we have enough money to, but I don't want to be handcuffed into only taking the money out of that, and that we can actually withdraw funds from our conservation fund, which is not taxpayer funded. That's why we have that.
I don't,
Our monies. We can spend that money to purchase an easement.
Yeah.
my feeling would be this was never brought up till tonight.
What was?
We thought it was all coming through donations. I think that's what the.
No, our motion at the Conservation Commission was that a certain percentage, because we didn't know how much money we were going to raise.
Yeah.
And so we have the Conservation Fund, which is current use change tax, which is how we accumulate money to.
Can I just make one suggestion, just thoughtful, because I
Yeah.
don't think the world's going to change tonight. Can you give this to John?
John wrote
Right.
this.
Huh?
He wrote this one.
Well, I know, but can you give it to him with the things we're discussing, so it's legally?
I mean, I read this totally different than the chair did. Like, I read this as it's coming from, like, maybe just because I know it more. I mean, the donations and the conservation fund. Like, I did not read this that it was coming at all from taxation. It's just the way this resolution is written to me. It is stating that we're just authorizing you to engage in the purchase and sale agreement. So I'd like, if it's cleaner as opposed to naming the fund, literally just saying like as you initially said, not to be raised through taxation, or like money not to come from taxation, or the general fund. Like, would that make it easier if it just said like money not to come from the general fund?
I just don't know. what
At one of their earlier meetings, when I approached them and said we were gonna, the church originally wanted $75,000 for the property. And so my daughter did all the values of the land and came up with $57,000. But at the time when they quoted us 75, I came to the Conservation Commission and says, I know we got 50,000. I says, and Drew Kafiba says, well, the Conservation Commission will pledge up to $25,000 for the purchase of the land, and they voted in favor of it. So the way I look at it, that money for the purchasing of the land is still there, but do we need it? I don't think we're going to need it anyway. But they voted to go up to $25,000 for this project, for the purchase of the land. But I think we've raised enough money now that I don't think we've got to use their money. But
I don't think anybody's not for this, I just.
Yeah,
wanna make
yeah,
sure we
it just, because I want to clarify, if the amendments, I think legally is legally fine. My confusion is, is the money coming from the contributions, or is it coming from the Conservation Commission?
They're saying they don't know if they're going to have enough contribution.
The money is initially going to come from the contributions. But if there are some ideas as different ways to develop the park, to me, it's unlikely that the cost would.
But I think there's two different things then. Hold on, then there's two different things, and I want to make sure
Here,
this
you
is.
got two counselors with lights on
Oh, I'm
here,
so- I-
too,
I'm
so
sorry.
before you jumped in
I'm
like you don't.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I was trying to follow this whole thing, and I apologize.
I know.
Why don't we have the councilors
Yeah,
ask the
absolutely.
question? Counselor, I apologize
Well,
for
we
not.
need to vote on the amendment first, and
Oh.
then we can go back on discussion, back to
I think
discussion.
we're discussing the amendment right now.
Okay.
So Counselor Thompson and then Pike, and then.
I think my points are going to stand either way. A lot of this could have been avoided if we had had language in here that explained that it was not coming from taxation. Again, I think, as another counselor said, it doesn't mean that we are against this. Clearly, we voted to accept the gifts, and this is a good idea. But the way I read this resolution is that the town is paying $60,000, and specifically stating not from taxation, I think, is the intent. Regardless of what can be afforded going forward for future improvements, that is not on our table. If you don't have enough money in funds down the road, you got to deal with it down the road. Right now, we're talking about buying something for $60,000, which it sounds like you do have from donations. So having that spelled out would be good. Back to my initial report. Where is the staff report that is required to be attached to these resolutions? In the purchase and sales agreement, for those on TV or that weren't here or might not remember, in the purchase and sales agreement, it talks about the parcel as per Exhibit A and specifically says attached to this. It's not in here. So including a staff report would have helped iron some of this out. Exhibit A showing where this actually is, I think, would have helped something out. I noticed where are the funds coming from. I think we've addressed that. And my final note is I think it's really important in the body of the resolution to make sure that there are no typographical errors, particularly in the spelling of Schottmeyer. So I would like to see those things taken care of. Thanks.
Counselor Pike and then.
Mine was just the spelling on the name.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's some confusion here because I think that there's literally just confusion here. $60,000 is coming from raised funds to purchase this land. Jeff, what you're talking about is like the Conservation Commission wants the ability to like do some other things like with the park, like with that additional money the Conservation Commission's talked about, correct?
That is correct.
Could you come up to the.
More or less, that is correct.
Right. So, I guess I'm just going to get super clear. Are you saying that if this 25 is not used for this, if that money entirely comes from the donation, the 25 is still free game to do other stuff with the park?
I believe that money was. I believe the $25,000 that we had set aside was for purchasing.
Just for the land.
Exactly.
That's the way it's set up.
Exactly.
Drew made the motion.
That is how I recall the motion. The purpose of that motion was $25,000 potentially to come from the conservation fund to make up the difference in lack of donations to cover the cost of the purchase of the
to make
easement.
the difference in lack of donations.
Yes, or I would have to go back and read it. I don't want to misspeak.
Yeah.
Because earlier you said if we wanted to do some things, I thought he said.
Well, I know, but
No, but what I was trying to get at by saying that is they had talked about some potential ways to improve the easement area, that some of them seemed costly, and so.
So could the Conservation Commission, should the whole 60 come out of donation, could the Conservation Commission vote for that 25 to be used for a different purpose for like?
Yes.
So like, it's not like that 25 is off the table for you to use.
No, if we don't
Commission.
use it, it doesn't get used, and we can, and traditionally, we've drawn upon the Conservation Fund to pay for anything we've needed to do or wanted to do with our conservation properties in town.
So like, fixing up the land
Yes.
does not like go away as a possibility with that 25 if this 60 comes fully from donation.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all.
It's not it's not hamstringing you. It's just hamstrings
No.
you. The commission would have to have another vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Thompson.
I got to clarify still because I'm still confused. Is what you're saying is that the purchase price of $60,000, none of it is coming from taxation?
That's
It's
That's
all
true.
donations or your funds. It's not that, I'm going to call it the wrong thing. It's not that the Conservation Commission is going to hang on to its funds with everything above $25,000 coming from taxation.
not at all.
Everything is
No,
internal.
nothing
Okay,
will come
I
from
just-
taxation, yes.
I want to know where the paper trail is here.
We may
okay?
not spend any money out of our conservation fund.
Right,
And there definitely will not be money from taxation.
but again, none from
None
taxation.
from taxation.
Just
Okay.
can I ask one quick question about that? If you wanted, because I don't know what's in the conservation fund. Do you have any
It's
idea?
there's a little over $200,000.
So,
That's not a tax.
just so I'm clear, if you wanted to do some work at the park and you wanted to spend, I'm just making up a number, $100,000, you could vote to spend that money that's in the conservation fund on that.
That's my understanding,
Correct.
yes.
Okay. There's no limit, the Conservation Committee votes on whatever monies they have in their fund? I apologize, but I'm not familiar with how
Yes.
that all works. So they can direct it any way they want to any
Yeah.
of their properties?
As long as maintenance of properties, any purchasing of properties has to come to the council because only the council can accept property.
But as far as upgrading, things like that, that's within their purview?
Yep.
Councilman
So
Sines.
could I? What is the amendment on the floor? Like,
To read the Shopmeyer Community Park Memorial Fund.
so it's just saying the amendment on the floor right now is saying that it amends the whereas the council is amenable to the purchase of the easements in Newmarket Community Church for the sum of $60,000 to come from the Shopmeyer Park Memorial Fund.
Yeah.
So which is entirely raised through fundraising.
Correct.
No tax dollars.
Correct.
And I might put that in parentheses or something to just make that clear, really.
I'm
just
And,
so
okay with
and that
that.
does not hamstring the Conservation Commission from doing
We
improvements.
got
later.
$130,000 in the fund,
All right.
give and take.
I'm
You
happy
might
with
want
that.
to,
Yeah, we just want the i's to
Help
be
buy some
dotted.
salt
'Cause
with it.
when we're all gone and somebody's doing something,
Not pushing the pencil in and dot.
it's nice to know
Alright.
what the plan
Alright.
is. Counselor Thompson, do you have another question?
no, I don't.
Call the roll, please.
Counselor
With
Burns.
those amendments.
Yeah.
This is the
This is the
vote
amendment.
on the
Just on the
amendment.
This is the
amendment,
amendment.
right?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Pike.
Aye.
Counselor Thompson.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Counselor Nazaro.
Aye.
Counselor Levy.
Yeah.
Motion passes 7-0.
And now we vote on
The resolution as
Amended
amended.
as amended. Please call the roll.
Counselor Burns.
Aye.
Counselor Bowden.
Aye.
Counselor Pike.
Aye.
Counselor Thompson.
Aye.
Counselor Weinstein.
Aye.
Counselor Nazaro.
Aye.
Counselor Levy.
Hallelujah.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you for your patience and
Thank you
indulgence.
for all your work, guys. This is like huge. It's been a lot of work, so thank you both.
We still got a lot ahead of us.
Yeah.
It'll be
Congratulations
exciting
for
to see.
what you've done.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting there. We're almost, well, maybe I spoke too soon. Page 82, we got a backup.
Back on.
Resolution 2016-17-25, resolution relating to the refurbishment of the water and sewer vac-on truck. Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Mr. Gregg,
Hey,
sell
thanks.
us on this
Sell
refurb
us.
truck.
Well, this is about our 2004 VACON, as in the staff report. The VACON was purchased back around 2004, 2005. It's used to clean catch basins, clean sewer lines, relieve backups. We also use it at the wastewater treatment plant to empty tanks, digesters. It's used sometimes in water breaks. That's generally how it's used. So it's about 12, 13 years old. This past fall, I think it spent more time with my guys working on it, trying to keep it going, than it actually was. We could get it out on the street. This is a very important piece of our equipment. We actually have a new capacity operation and maintenance program for our. It's required for our permit, for our NEPTES permit for the wastewater treatment plant. That requires us to clean our sewer mains and logs and do all those things for the manholes. Rick actually is going to need this truck as part of the MS4 program. So we actually looked at what should we do with it. Should we replace it? Should we, or should we refurbish it? One of the biggest things we have a hydraulic leak in it, in the back section of it for the suction side of it, which is we're losing a lot of hydraulic fluid. And that's about a $24,000 repair. We looked around. We actually had a representative come up from VACCON and look at the truck. We had Auto Excellence look at the truck. The chassis and the frame are in great shape. It's stored in the garage. So they looked at it and said should last you another 10 years or more. The engine's in great shape. It's just the cleaning side of the truck that's just pretty much in bad repair. It's $151,000 to do a refurbish, and it's approximately $330,000 for a new truck. I'm recommending that we refurbish it. It would take about 4 to 6 weeks to refurbish it. They go through the entire rear end and replace and repair what's needed, and we get it back in 4 to 6 weeks like a brand new truck.
Counselor Thompson.
Okay.
I'm all over the lights.
At the last meeting, I requested that a change be made to the resolution to say $50,535.08 each.
We cannot change, you have to amend it like you did last. We can't do a change like that. So I'd ask for a motion.
So you need an amendment.
Unless it's the council agrees to a friendly amendment.
What was the amendment?
Now, on the actual resolution, now therefore let it be resolved that the Newmarket Town Council does authorize $50,535.08 from the Water, Wastewater, and Public Works Department's capital reserves, and I would propose a friendly amendment to change that to insert the word each between 8 cents and from.
I'm cool with that.
Or from each of the water, whatever. It's just that corresponds more to the
way it's going to be
staff and the way it's going to be done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like a friendly amendment to me.
Okay. Yeah. Councilor Pike.
I wasn't done.
Okay.
Are we doing the amendment now, or do you want
It's
to
a
just
friendly
come back
amendment,
to that?
so you don't have to vote
Friendly
on a friendly
amendment.
amendment. You just kind of just.
Okay.
Sorry.
I want to get him mad at me.
Just a Scrivener's thing, VACCON. It would be nice if that was spelled correctly in the resolution. BAC. With the hyphen, as in a lot of the backup there. It's 2 words hyphenated, not all one word. VACCON. How many miles are on the existing truck?
There's only 6,000 miles on it, but the hours are. I don't even actually think the hours are right. I think there's something wrong with the hour meter. It reads over 100,000 hours on it.
That was my next question.
Because it sits. So you actually drive up to a spot and it sits for a while.
Sits and runs.
Yeah, it
Understood.
sits. So ideally, when we emptied our digesters, you'd be sucking out of the tank for hours, but you'd only drive 500 feet to empty it.
It just all sounds so sexy or something. I don't know.
It is what it is.
How often is this truck used? Is it about once a week, 26 times a week?
We should be using it from about 3 times a week from April through October. Rick should be using it also a couple times a week to hit his catch basins.
So water is 3 times a week?
Sewer is 3 times a week.
And Rick should be?
Well, I can't
2
speak to
times a
how
week?
often I can't speak to how often he uses it.
Okay.
He'll tend to try and get his catch basins done in the spring and the fall. So that's when he typically tries to use it. We try and go on a schedule of trying to hit our bad spots 3 or 4 times a year, and then we try and do the other portions of the sewer system
So is
throughout
that
the
3
year.
times a week or 3 times a year?
No, it's 3 times a week.
Okay.
3 times a week.
Which leads to my next question, and it's just a question. Why not rent a truck? Why not share Exeter's? Pick a town.
Well, you're not going to be able to share with another town because they'll be using it just as often as we'd be using it, so you wouldn't be able to get it. I know, for example, Durham is out the same amount of times we are during the week. The other issue is when you start sharing a truck, where is that truck going to be stored? When you get called out in the middle of the night because somebody's sewer's backing up, where is that truck? When something goes wrong with that truck, who's responsible for that truck, to maintain it? Who's going to pay for that repair? There's a lot of issues with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I was actually approached by the Department of Transportation for the state if we could serve as a mutual aid agreement with them because they don't have enough VAC-on trucks.
Oh, I thought it was just,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
interested to
it's a
know
it's a
how
great
far
question.
the research
Yeah.
went and whatever, if that was something that we only used twice a year. Everybody swaps it around, like the police swap around, the task force has one Bearcat. That, just
Where we
asking
tend
the
to,
question, Sean.
when we tend to share with somebody is we do not have the big camera. And I have to go to, we do need a camera to see a small one that we use to push and look and see down the pipe as to see if a pipe needs to be cleaned or if it did get cleaned well. But for someone to come in with a really good camera, we actually call Portsmouth to come in and helps us out, and Dover comes in and helps us out.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon with a big piece of equipment.
Yeah,
like
with that kind of
That's
stuff.
not every day. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Pike.
This is a real simple question, but it puts in there that it talks about the VAC-on refurbishing program, and it talks about a gold, silver, and bronze package. Which package are we buying?
We're getting the gold.
Okay.
We're getting a complete rebuild of that back end of the truck, so it's new and you're starting over.
So it's the whole page, essentially?
Yes, it's the whole page.
Okay,
See, the
thank you.
platinum we'd be buying a new one.
Okay.
I mean, I guess when you look at it, there's a sizable difference in the dollar amount. And I don't see how there's any possible way you could spend that difference in the long term of that truck.
Sean, we're going to okay this, but I have to ask, based on Councilor Thompson's question, if a town didn't have a VAC-con truck with a hyphen, do we rent? What do towns do that don't own these $300,000 trucks?
Well, let me tell you what they call the piece of equipment we have when we get a sewer plug. My colleagues call it the slinky from hell.
It's actually nicer than I thought.
I was getting nervous.
Thought I was going to pull a Rick on you, didn't I? But it's a long coil where it takes 3 or 4 of us to go out, and we actually force it down the line, and one person's on the end cranking it.
So
And we've had people get hit in the head with it. And it's dangerous.
that'd be lovely.
Oh, yeah,
It's dangerous.
number of ways.
So,
Yeah.
but so
Since we've had the vac truck and we've been out there cleaning the sewers, we've had a far less amount of backups in the system.
I'm not saying we don't need
Yeah.
it. I'm not. That was all I'm
No,
asking.
I just
is
want to say that's
for
a definitely.
for a town that doesn't own one, because there must be some towns that can't afford $300,000 for a truck. I don't know. Does Newfields have a VAC-on truck?
No, and I don't. Their
What do they
system-
do?
Their system's kind of small. They would probably have someone come in and clean it in a week.
And
Because
so-
of the size of
and
the
that's
system.
the
They
only
rent
reason-
it.
The only reason I'm asking, and I just have to ask, can towns have a contract with a company that comes in and does this like a maintenance contract? And has anybody ever looked at that? And I'm not suggesting we don't need it. I have to ask.
Many years ago, we actually had someone come in for 4 weeks out of the year to clean our sewers and do our catch basins. And it was back in '04, I guess George Laney did some sort of analysis on how much pipe we have, what we should be cleaning, and that's when the decision was to go to the VACON.
Yeah.
And another thing is the emergency situation. I can tell you that during I want to get the weekend right. The weekend we had our budget workshop on Saturday. We had the torrential floods, and the leaves actually clogged the system. We were able to use this piece of equipment to go in there and relieve the floods by getting the debris out of that. So that's the other part of it. It's the emergency response.
It's the emergency response, which is really big. When someone's backing up into their house and you need to get that line cleaned and cleared, that's the big issue.
There's no arguing this. I'm cool. I just had to ask because it's my nature.
That's what we do.
Please call the roll.
Council Burns.
Aye.
Council Bowden.
Aye.
Council Pike.
Aye.
Council Thompson.
Aye.
Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Council Nazaro.
Aye.
Council Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Sean, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And last resolution for tonight, 2016-17-26, relating to the transferring of funds from the Downtown TIF Capital Reserve Fund. Reader's Digest, Matt?
We need a motion. So moved.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
I'm getting punchy.
All right, this is just housekeeping. I'm going to try to do it very quick. This is to pay the debt service for the downtown TIF that's already closed. We put money aside in a capital reserve fund. Annually, we withdraw funds to pay the debt service. Normally, I come in June. I'm trying to get this done so that the next person doesn't have to worry about it for another year. Just getting rid of housekeeping stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions for Matt?
Just a comment, because I know it's asked every year. We can't buy out the bond.
Is it because it's too expensive or it's
No
illegal?
prepayment.
It's
Okay.
in the agreement. We can't buy out the bond.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Council Burns.
Aye.
Council Bowden.
Aye.
Council Pike.
Aye.
Council Thompson.
Aye.
Council Weinstein.
Aye.
Council Nazaro.
Aye.
Council Levy.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
With regard to Resolution 2016, 17, 19, and 20, which has to do with the memorandum of understanding for the school facilities director and the facilities job description, we are hoping to vote on this at the next meeting. We're going to suspend the rules and approve it as rewritten by the, how would you?
Yeah, technically, you don't need to suspend the rules on this one. If another resolution were to come up, you'll need to suspend the rules on that one.
Okay. So how would you, you wanted just to?
Just going to hold it over for a third
We're going to
reading.
hold it over for fourth reading.
Fourth
Fourth
reading, 'cause we've
And
done-
the council will act on it at that point in time.
Okay. And you're going to get us a draft beforehand and?
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Okay. If there's any questions, you can refer them to the town administrator, if anybody out there. Okay. And lastly, we're still waiting on the resolution for 152. We don't have anybody for appointments, so I'm going to ask the indulgence of the council to read by name only ordinance 2016-17-1, amendment of Chapter 32 zoning, Article 1, Section 32-5, and it has to do with the accessory apartments and nonconformity, and it's fairly lengthy. If people are interested in this, I would read it. I think the council should read it because it's changing. And there was also a law passed by the state of New Hampshire, I believe, for accessory apartments.
Yep.
Is that included in this, Steve?
You want a copy of the law?
Well, not the second, but could you get it for our next meeting, please?
Oh, the law isn't.
Yeah,
no.
just so everybody knows what the deal is. Okay. And other than that, any correspondence to councilors or final comments? Councilor Bowden. Oh, fake me out.
Got me fired.
I didn't get to my buzzer.
Oh.
We're in jeopardy all
She was
of a sudden.
messing, she was just messing with me.
No, I'll be next. So I didn't press the button.
What is NYA for 10,000, Alex? So just wanted to let everyone out on the airwaves know that NYAA, meaning the Newmarket Youth Athletic Association.
I thought he said it, MIA.
No, NYAA. Has opened up registration for youth softball as well as youth baseball. There's a new site that was developed, kind of bringing everything together, so parents can register their kids once, won't have to do it again for any other sports that they're registering for. Makes it a lot easier.
Agreed. One
Place, one-stop shop. And it's www.newmarketyouthsports.com. Again, newmarketyouthsports.com.
Very good.
So, get those kids out there, please.
Is,
I do have something.
go ahead, Council Weinstein.
So this is a PSA. This was brought to my attention by a concerned resident, and I just want to say that we have these great new crosswalks, and people really should use the lights.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been a few near misses, and this was, this person was concerned because she was driving up from the south side of 108, and especially that first crosswalk is, you get on it really fast. I mean, even at the reduced speed limit, you're right there. And if the lights, I think people are training themselves to look for the lights, and then if you forget, if the pedestrian doesn't press the lights, then they can be really hard to see at night. So, so just a reminder to use the lights. We, installed them for a reason.
We've brought that up before.
Yeah, and one of the problems is if you have the continuing flashing, it turns in the background. It's not light.
Right.
That's the purpose of the having the button too, so people
Right.
understand that is so people can see it versus
As
after
a difference, not always. Well,
Right.
like at the school, that works huge at the school because you get cruising by the school and you're like do, and you're looking around and it's very busy right there. But you crest that hill and it's like,
And we
golly.
encourage that too. That at the school as well. Make sure you hit
They're-
the
well,
button.
and
there.
and that's my
Yeah.
point. They're very good about it right there. Downtown, it's a little less of a captive
actually,
audience, let's say.
The students are good.
Yeah.
Adults are-
It's
training. Yeah.
that, and coming up Library Hill is the other one.
Yeah.
Actually, at the top of the hill is okay. It's the second one down that I find to be a problem. So, thank you.
That's it.
That's one.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Do I have to sign anything?
We'll get because of a couple.
Thanks, everybody. Are we off?